I'm just a lover of dinosaur bones, and when we go on our hikes and walks, we're always looking at the ground for interesting rocks, and lo and behold, we found some beautiful specimens. And so they were just out in nature. We never did any excavating. We never touched the fossils as far as scraping anything off. They're just in their natural state like we found them.
We get a lot of inquiries about fossils that people have found in the region. Sometimes they'll email us, sometimes they'll call us. A lot of times people will just bring them in for us to look at. So I would say it's a weekly occurrence that people bring in fossils for us to look at. We get a lot of dinosaur bones, a lot of fragments of dinosaurs. That's one of the common things that we find here in the region. And of course, then that's a common thing that people will bring into us. And we also get a lot of marine fossils in the forms of things like fossilized shells, snails, things like ammonites, which are these kind of squid-like things that lived in the ocean during the Cretaceous. There are a number of characteristics that fossil bone has. The most obvious one is shape. So if you find a fossil bone that is not too badly weathered, it can actually still look like a bone. It can still be bone shaped. So that's an important indicator, is the shape. The surface of bone will also have what's called a bone grain. So it kind of looks like wood. And if you look at the inside of a bone, it often has a bubbly texture, kind of like a fossilized sponge. So that's basically the bone marrow.
These two pieces we think might have gone together. Inside the center was the bone marrow. So it looks like a tib and a fib from a leg of a hadrosaur.
Here in Alberta, there is a legislation that protects fossils. Fossils are considered heritage property, similar to things like artifacts and other ethnological sites. So under the Heritage Property Act, it is legal to surface collect fossils. So that's basically to pick them off of the ground, as long as people are not in protected areas. So protected areas are things like provincial parks, national parks, natural areas, things like that. So fossils can be legally surface collected with a proviso that the fossil doesn't leave the province. So surface collected fossils have to stay in Alberta, and the understanding that the person who collects them is not the owner of that fossil. They are more like the custodian. Fossils in Alberta cannot be sold without express permission from the government of Alberta. And it is not legal to excavate fossils. So the moment that you have to go in there with a shovel or a pickaxe and dig, that requires a permit. The most critical thing when you find a fossil is to ideally leave it where it is, if it's going to be kind of safe where it is, if it's not in imminent danger of kind of being swept down a river. And the second most important thing to do is to make a note of where it's found, because the location in the rock where a fossil is found is as important as the fossil itself. It's what we call the geologic context. And without that context, the fossil loses 90% of the information it contains.
That was
Creek. Say probably hadrosaur. Like hadrosaur is kind of our default here.
It's amazing when people bring in fossils that they're willing for us to keep and have in our collection space, because it's showing that these people, like, yes, they are activists and they love to go outside and love to find things, but they love to share it as well. And that's what we're trying to do in museums and universities with fossil or artifact collections, is we don't want to hoard things and keep them in private. We want to be able to share them in the best way possible.
It's never too late to bring in a fossil. We tell people, like, if they found a fossil that was collected 20 years ago, we would still really love to hear about it.